I'll make that fat obese woman mine forever. Mountain Man's forbidden love confession. Sell her. I don't care if you have to give her away for scraps. She's nothing but a fat animal. Marcus Whitmore's voice cracked across the summer air like a whip. The square of Silver Creek baked under the sun, dust glowing gold in the heat. On the rough wooden platform at the center of town, his eldest daughter stood with her wrists tied cruelly behind her back, a rough rope biting into soft skin. Charlotte Whitmore, 26 years old, stared at the crowd through a blur of sweat and tears. The crude board hanging from her neck knocked against her collarbone with every tremble of her body. Fat pig, for sale. Starting bid. $5 laughter rolled through the square like thunder. $5, that's robbery. A woman in a black dress cackled. You should pay someone to take that thing. A thick-necked man waddled forward, his breath sour with whiskey. His fingers dug into the flesh of Charlotte's upper arm as if she really were livestock. Soft enough, he grunted. Might make decent meat if you salt her long enough. More laughter. Someone whistled. Someone else oinked like a pig. Charlotte flinched but lifted her chin anyway, blue eyes burning with a pride she refused to let them crush. Every word stabbed, every stare cut, but she would not bow. Not for them, not even for him, her father. Marcus cracked his real whip across her back, the leather biting through her thin dress. Stand still, he snarled. You're merchandise, not a lady. Pain seared up her spine. She tasted blood where she'd bitten her tongue. Behind Marcus, her mother turned her face away as if she couldn't bear the sight, not out of pity, but disgust. I should never have brought her into this world, Eleanor murmured to the cluster of watching women. All that food, all those dresses, and for what? Look at her, a disgrace to the Whitmore name. Isabel, Charlotte's younger sister, delicate and perfectly slim in a pale blue dress, smiled with poisonous sweetness. She chose this, Isabel said lightly, always eating more, always embarrassing us. Let someone else feed the sow. A drunk stumbled up onto the platform swaying. $3, he shouted. I'll toss her to the hogs and see if they even want her. The crowd roared. Charlotte's throat burned. The rope cut deeper as she fought to keep her shoulders squared. She wanted to disappear. She wanted the earth to split and swallow her and this cursed town whole. But she would not beg. I am not an animal, she forced out, voice shaking but loud enough to carry. I am a person. I am your daughter. Marcus spun on her, face purple with fury. The whip fell again and again, the sound of leather on flesh slicing through the laughter. You are nothing to me, he hissed, nothing but shame. Charlotte's knees buckled. She fell hard onto the boards, splinters biting into her skin. The sky above her swam, a hot, merciless blue. If there is a God, she thought, let it end. Let me die before one of them owns me. $2, another voice called. I'll work her to death in a week. 50 cents and a chicken bone. The crowd howled. Dust, heat, humiliation, everything spun together into one suffocating blur. And then, through the noise, came a different voice, deep, calm, cutting straight through the cruelty like a blade. $100, the man said, and I'll make that fat woman mine forever. The square went dead silent as every head turned toward the stranger who had just named a price no one in Silver Creek would dare, and claimed the woman they all called a pig. Before we go on with what happens next, if you're listening to this story right now, tell me in the comments where in the world you're listening from. The voice came from the edge of the crowd, steady as thunder rolling over distant mountains. People stepped aside instinctively, whispers cutting through the heat as the stranger moved forward. Nathaniel Blackwood? Even in a place like Silver Creek, where guns were common and tempers even more so, he drew stares. He stood nearly 2 meters tall, shoulders broad beneath a worn buffalo hide coat. His hair, long and dark, fell in loose waves past his jaw, framing a hardened face marked by sun, storms, and scars earned far from the safety of towns. Green eyes, cold as pine forests in deep winter, fixed on Marcus Whitmore with unflinching calm. The crowd didn't laugh now. They watched, wary, like prey sensing a predator. Nathaniel stepped up onto the platform as if he owned it, as if none of the jeers, the cruelty, the spectacle meant anything to him. Marcus swallowed hard. $100? Sir, you must be jesting. For that thing? The word thing jabbed into Charlotte sharper than any whip. She kept her gaze low, breath unsteady, shame heating her skin like fire. Her dress clung to her in all the wrong ways, too tight at the waist, straining at the seams of her sleeves. The heat brought out every insecurity, every cruelty she'd endured her entire life. Look at her, Marcus pressed, waving toward Charlotte as if he were showcasing defective livestock. She's big as a cow, eats thrice more than she should, doesn't know a lady's manners. Why in God's name would you— The stranger raised a hand, silencing him. I didn't ask for a description, Nathaniel said. I named my price. He tossed a small leather pouch onto the platform. Gold coins spilled out across the wood with a heavy clatter that seemed loud enough to echo off the mountains miles away. Marcus lunged for them, greed replacing hesitation. It's all here, Nathaniel said. Count them if you must. But Marcus didn't count. He grabbed every coin, shoving them into his vest like a starving dog hoarding bones. When he straightened, Charlotte wished, hoped, maybe he would look at her with even a flicker of guilt. He didn't. She's yours, Marcus crowed. All sales final. Good luck keeping her fed. More laughter, harsher this time because it came with jealousy. No one in Silver Creek had ever seen that much money thrown around, not for a woman, certainly not for a woman like her. Nathaniel turned from Marcus and knelt beside Charlotte. For the first time since being dragged onto this platform, someone's eyes met hers with something other than disgust. Let me see your hands, he said quietly. Her breath caught. She didn't understand, didn't trust this, didn't dare hope. But his tone held no mockery. With trembling arms, Charlotte lifted her bound wrists. The rope had rubbed them raw. Dried blood clung in dark streaks. Nathaniel's jaw tightened, not in revulsion, but in anger at what he saw. A small hunting knife flashed in his grip. 2 swift motions, and the rope fell away. Charlotte gasped softly as sensation returned to her fingers. He rose, shrugging off the heavy coat he wore. Without hesitation, he draped it gently over her shoulders. The warmth and weight of it made her eyes burn again, not with shame, but with something dangerously close to relief. Stand, he murmured. You're coming with me. Charlotte's legs wobbled so badly she thought she might collapse. She'd expected her father to object, to scream, to demand more money. But Marcus only smirked, leaning on his whip. Take her, he said. She's your problem now. Your problem. The words echoed inside her like a sentence. As Nathaniel guided her down from the platform, the whispers followed. He's mad. Maybe he's desperate. Maybe he wants a beast to do heavy work. Maybe he's planning to butcher her. Charlotte shrank into the coat. She didn't want Nathaniel to hear them. She didn't want anyone to see the tears she tried so hard to hide. Halfway across the square, she finally found her voice, thin, shaky, but hers. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you buy me?" Nathaniel didn't slow his stride. "Because what they said to you was wrong." She blinked. "You don't even know me." "I know cruelty when I see it," he said, "and I don't tolerate it." A sharp, stunned breath escaped her. No one had ever said that. No one had ever fought for her, shielded her, or even spoken gently to her without expecting something in return. When they reached the edge of the crowd, Charlotte turned for one last look at her family. Her mother's expression was cold stone. Isabel smirked with satisfaction. Marcus didn't even look her way. He was too busy counting his coins. Her throat tightened. They really had sold her, thrown her away, and still humiliation clung to her like dust on her skin. Nathaniel's voice broke through the storm inside her. "My cabin is in the mountains," he said. "A long ride from here." Charlotte flinched. "Are you taking me as your servant?" He paused, turned fully toward her. "No," he said. "I'm taking you as the woman I claim, the woman I choose." Her breath left her all at once. "You choose me?" she whispered. "Yes," he said simply, "and I don't choose lightly." His certainty shook her more than the laughter ever had, because for the first time in her life, someone didn't look at her and see shame. He saw worth. They left Silver Creek before the sun dipped behind the low hills, the stranger's horse stamping impatiently as Nathaniel lifted Charlotte onto the saddle. She winced when her sore wrists brushed the leather, but he adjusted her gently, as if afraid she might break. "Hold on to me," he said as he swung up in front of her. Her arms hovered awkwardly at his sides until he reached back, took her hands, and placed them firmly around his waist. "You won't fall," he murmured. "Not while I'm here." The horse started forward, hooves thudding against packed earth. Charlotte glanced back only once. The town that had mocked her now lay behind them, small, dusty, shrinking with each step. Her family didn't look out the window for her. No one searched. No one cared that she was gone, except the man she clung to. The road turned from dirt to rocky path, weaving between tall pines and cottonwoods. The air shifted from the thick, dusty heat of town to cool, resin-scented wind whispering through branches. Birds shrieked overhead. Somewhere distant, a creek rushed over stones. Charlotte swallowed hard. She knew nothing of mountains, nothing of wilderness or survival. Her world had always been parlors, sewing rooms, and hallways where whispers followed her like shadows. Nathaniel rode in silence, his muscles shifting beneath her palms with every movement of the horse. He rode like someone who belonged here, like the trees recognized him, like the mountains bowed to let him pass. Every so often he glanced back, checking she was steady, checking she wasn't crying or frightened. She was both. "Are you cold?" he asked softly as the air thinned. She shook her head, though her skin prickled beneath his coat. The garment still held the warmth of his body, the faint scent of pine smoke and leather. It felt protective in a way she didn't understand. "We have a long ride," he said. "If you're tired, lean on my back." She hesitated. "I don't want to trouble you." "You're not a trouble," he said. "Lean." So she did, carefully, slowly, until her forehead rested between his shoulder blades. His body was warm, solid, grounding. She felt the steady rise and fall of his breath, felt safer than she'd ever felt in her life. After an hour, the path narrowed and began to climb. The forest thickened, the light dimming beneath towering pines. Charlotte finally whispered, "Why here? Why the mountains?" Nathaniel didn't answer immediately. He seemed to consider his words. "I live away from people for a reason," he said at last. "Up there, no one tells me how to live. No one tells me who I should or shouldn't value. No one decides worth on appearance." Charlotte's chest tightened. "You speak as if you've been judged, too." He gave a low, humorless breath. "Everyone's been judged for something." She wanted to ask what he meant. What had happened to him? Why did he look at her pain as if he understood it? But fear kept her silent. The trail opened suddenly to a clearing where a brook cut through the forest. Nathaniel pulled the horse to a stop beside it. "We'll rest here," he said, dismounting. "Your legs must be numb." Before she could respond, he reached up, hands gentle around her waist, and lifted her down as though she weighed nothing. Her feet touched soft grass. The shock of standing after hours of riding sent a bolt of pain up her legs, and she stumbled. Nathaniel caught her instantly, broad hands steadying her arms. "Easy," he murmured. "Don't push yourself." Charlotte's cheeks burned. "I'm sorry. I know I'm heavy." He stared at her, expression hardening, not with anger at her, but at the words she'd used. "Don't apologize for your body," he said. "Not to me, not to anyone." She blinked at him, stunned. No one had ever spoken such a sentence in her presence. Certainly not for her. He led her to a flat rock, filled a tin cup at the brook, and handed it to her. She took it with trembling hands. "You're quiet," he said. "Tell me what you're thinking." Charlotte swallowed. "I'm thinking none of this makes sense. You don't know me. You don't know the things they say about me." "I heard enough," he replied, "and I saw more than they ever did." "What did you see?" she whispered. Nathaniel knelt to check the horse's reins, but his voice stayed steady. "Someone who stood tall while they tried to break her. Someone who didn't scream when they whipped her. Someone who still had pride in her eyes even when she was on her knees." Charlotte stared at him, breath catching. "No one has ever noticed that," she said. "They noticed," he corrected. "They just disliked it. People fear strength they don't understand." Silence settled between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was fragile, new, like something taking shape that neither of them could name yet. After a few minutes, Nathaniel stood and extended a hand. "We still have hours to go," he said, "but once we reach the cabin, you'll rest, eat, and sleep without fear." His certainty shook her. "You speak as if I already belong there," she murmured. "You do," he said simply. "You belong where you're valued." When they mounted again, Nathaniel guided her hands around his waist without a word. This time she held tighter, not because she feared falling, but because, for the first time in her life, she wanted to stay close. The forest grew darker as they climbed deeper into the mountains. Yet, with her cheek resting lightly against Nathaniel's back, Charlotte felt something she had never felt before: hope. By the time they reached the clearing where Nathaniel lived, twilight had folded itself across the mountains. Shadows stretched long between the trees, and the fading light painted the lake beside the cabin in silver-blue ripples. The air was cooler here, cleaner, almost sweet, carrying the scent of pine smoke drifting from the stone chimney. Charlotte stared, breath trapped somewhere between awe and disbelief. The cabin wasn't small or crude like she'd imagined. It was sturdy, built from thick logs, its windows glowing faintly with the warm flicker of firelight. A small garden sat fenced along the side, vibrant with leafy greens. A smokehouse stood behind it. Chickens dozed on their perch near the barn. Everything seemed alive, busy, cared for. It was nothing like the cold, echoing Whitmore estate, where silence felt like a punishment. "Welcome home," Nathaniel said. The word struck her like a physical force. Home? She had never truly had one. He dismounted first, then helped her down, careful with her tired legs. When her boots touched the soft earth, he kept a steadying hand on her arm. "You'll get used to the ride," he said. "Tomorrow you'll feel sore, but by the next day it will settle." Charlotte nodded, though her mind struggled to catch up with everything. He led her toward the cabin door, pushing it open with a gentle nudge of his shoulder. Warmth enveloped her instantly. The interior glowed golden with lamplight. The great stone fireplace crackled quietly, sending waves of heat into the room. A long, solid wooden table filled one corner, its surface polished with age. A large animal pelt lay across the floor before the hearth. Bare, she thought, remembering whispers about the man who fought grizzlies alone. Shelves lined the wall above a workbench, cluttered with dried herbs, wooden bowls, and tools she didn't recognize. But what caught her breath was the far corner, a wide bed, neatly made with thick quilts and furs, soft, inviting, safe. Nathaniel watched her take it in, expression unreadable but warm. "I'll stoke the fire," he said. "You must be chilled." Yes," Charlotte whispered, unable to look away from the room. "It's beautiful." He knelt by the hearth, lifting a few thick logs with ease and setting them onto the embers. Sparks danced up the chimney. The room brightened. "I'm glad you think so," he said. "I built most of it with my own hands." "You built this?" Charlotte asked softly. He nodded, brushing soot from his palms. "It wasn't much at first, 4 walls and a roof. But things grow if you give them care." Charlotte's gaze drifted across the room again. Everything here bore the touch of someone who worked with patience, with strength, with intention. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was broken. "Sit," Nathaniel said gently. "Your legs must be sore." Charlotte sank onto a cushioned bench near the fireside, wincing slightly. Nathaniel noticed, but didn't comment. Instead, he hung a kettle near the flames and moved to the small kitchen area. "You haven't eaten since morning," he said. "I'll make something warm." "You don't have to." He cut her off with a glance, not sharp, but firm. "You're tired. You're hurt. You need food." Charlotte lowered her eyes. She'd always grown up being told she ate too much, wanted too much, existed too much. She didn't know how to accept someone insisting she deserved care. Nathaniel ladled stew from a cast-iron pot into a bowl and brought it to her. The smell, rich with herbs and tender elk meat, filled her lungs and made her stomach twist with longing. "Eat slowly," he said, settling across from her at the table. She lifted the spoon, hesitating. I'm sorry if I take too much." Nathaniel frowned. "Who told you that?" "My father," she murmured. "My mother, Isabel, everyone." He leaned forward, voice low and even. "You're not too much. You're not a burden. You need food because you're human." Her throat tightened. No one had ever said that to her. She took a spoonful. The warmth spread through her chest and brought tears to her eyes. When she tried to blink them away, Nathaniel stood, and retrieved a cloth, handing it to her without a word. "Thank you," she whispered. "Nothing to thank me for," he said. She ate until the bowl was empty, every bite grounding her a little more. When she finished, Nathaniel took the bowl and set it in a basin. "Would you like to wash up before sleep?" he asked. "The water's warm." You have warm water?" He smiled slightly. "The creek's cold enough to kill a man in winter. I prefer heat." Charlotte nodded, and he led her to the small bathing room. A large wooden tub already filled the space, steam curling from its surface. He had prepared it before they'd even arrived. "I'll step outside," he said, pausing at the doorway. "You take your time." "Wait," she said suddenly. He turned, brows raised. "Why are you being so kind to me?" she asked. "You don't even know me." He took a breath, the firelight catching the green in his eyes. "I don't need to know every detail to see your worth," he said. "Kindness isn't something you earn. It's something you're owed, simply for being alive." Her heart clenched. "I'm not used to it." "I gathered that," he replied. His voice softened. "But you will be." Then he left her alone. Charlotte bathed slowly, letting the warm water ease the ache in her muscles. When she caught sight of herself in the dim reflection, bruises along her arms, rope burns on her wrists, the marks of a life lived under ridicule, shame flickered again. But then she heard Nathaniel moving in the main room, stirring the fire, arranging blankets, his footsteps steady and patient. And something shifted. When she emerged wearing the clean, soft dress he'd left for her, Nathaniel looked up. His gaze flickered over her, not with disgust, not with pity, but with quiet approval. "Feels better?" he asked. "Yes," she whispered. He nodded toward the bed. "You sleep there tonight. I'll take the chair." Her eyes widened. "The chair? But this is your home, your bed." "I won't ask you to share it," he said. "Not until you want to." Her breath stilled. Want to. No one had ever let her want anything. He gathered a quilt and moved to the large armchair near the fire. Charlotte hesitated by the bed, trembling for a reason she couldn't name. "Nathaniel?" she asked softly. He looked up. "Are you sure I won't be in the way?" His expression didn't change, just softened around the edges. "You're not in the way," he said. "This cabin is warmer with you in it." Her eyes burned. She climbed into the bed, pulling the quilts close as she lay facing the fire. Nathaniel settled into the chair, one arm draping over the side as the flames cast shifting shadows across his face. After a long silence, Charlotte whispered, "I don't know why you choose me." Nathaniel's eyes met hers across the room. "One day," he said, "I hope you'll believe you deserve to be chosen." That night, for the first time in her life, Charlotte fell asleep without fear. Morning came slowly in the mountains. Thin beams of sunlight slipped through the window, painting soft gold across the wooden floor. Charlotte woke to the crackling of the hearth and the faint scent of something warm, bread maybe, or porridge, drifting from the kitchen. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then she saw Nathaniel, sitting at the table, mending a torn strap of leather. His hair fell loose around his shoulders, catching the early light. He seemed carved from the same mountains he lived in, solid, rugged, unwavering. He noticed her stir and set his work aside. "Morning," he said. "Did you sleep all right?" She nodded, suddenly shy. "Better than I ever have." "Good. Breakfast is ready." He pushed a warm wooden bowl toward her, oats with honey, toasted nuts, and dried berries. more food than she was ever given without judgment. She ate slowly, savoring the quiet, but she could feel his eyes on her, not in the cruel way she had known all her life, but in a way that made her pulse flutter, like he was checking she was real, that she was here, that she was safe. After breakfast, Nathaniel took her outside and began showing her the small world that surrounded the cabin. "That's the smokehouse," he said. "We'll fill it before winter comes, and over there is the garden, needs tending every morning." Charlotte listened, absorbing each detail. She felt clumsy at first, uncertain whether she was allowed to touch anything, help with anything, exist without being scolded. But Nathaniel never once raised his voice, never frowned when she moved too slowly, never sighed in irritation when she didn't know what tool was which. He simply taught, and she learned. By the second week, Charlotte found herself laughing once, softly, gently, when a chicken pecked at her boot. Nathaniel heard the sound from across the yard and stilled, his expression shifting into something like wonder. "You should laugh more," he said. She froze, embarrassed. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." His voice deepened. "It suits you." Heat rushed to her cheeks. She busied herself with feeding the hens, but she felt his gaze linger, warm and steady, like sunlight through branches. But peace rarely lasts long in the mountains. That evening, as they sat by the fire, the wind shifted suddenly. Nathaniel stiffened, tilting his head toward the open window. Charlotte felt the air grow colder, as if the trees outside held their breath. He stood. "What is it?" she whispered. "Riders," he said. "2, maybe 3. Her heart lurched. "Are they from town?" Nathaniel didn't answer immediately. He moved to the gun rack, took down his rifle, checked the chamber. "Stay inside," he instructed. Charlotte grabbed his sleeve. "Please, don't go out there." He placed a hand over hers. "I have to, but I'll be right here. You understand?" She nodded, though dread crawled through her like cold water. Nathaniel stepped onto the front porch, rifle loose at his side but ready. Charlotte stood behind the door, watching through a narrow crack. 3 riders emerged from the tree line. Her blood turned to ice. She recognized the one in front, Sheriff Alden Pratt, a man who had always despised her father's wealth and despised Charlotte even more for reasons she never knew. He tipped his hat lazily as he approached, but his smile held no warmth. "Well, well," Sheriff Pratt drawled. "Didn't expect to find you way up here, Blackwood." "You found me," Nathaniel replied flatly. "State your business." The sheriff swung one leg over the saddle and dismounted. "Business, right?" He spit into the dirt. "Marcus Whitmore came to me yesterday, claims his daughter was kidnapped." Charlotte sucked in a breath. Nathaniel didn't flinch. "His daughter was sold. I paid for her in front of half the town." "Yes, but he's changed his tune," the sheriff said. "Now he says you forced the sale, threatened him, intimidated him." "He's lying." "Probably, but lies pay well when you're a Whitmore." Pratt folded his arms. "He wants the girl back. Says she's property of the family. Says you stole her." Charlotte pressed a hand to her mouth to stifle a cry. "Stolen. Property." Nathaniel's voice hardened. "She's not property." "Maybe not to you," the sheriff shrugged. "But to the law, to the Whitmore name, she is." "No." Nathaniel leveled the rifle. "She's mine by right of purchase, and she stays with me by her own will." Sheriff Pratt's eyes narrowed. "Do you love her or something, Blackwood?" Nathaniel didn't blink. "Yes," he said, "I do." Charlotte nearly collapsed. Pratt gave an exaggerated sigh. Romantic, sure, but the Whitmores don't care. Marcus wants her back, and he's willing to pay handsomely to make sure the law supports him. Nathaniel stepped forward, shoulders squared, like a man ready to challenge an avalanche. "You tell Marcus this," he said. "If he sets one foot on my mountain, he won't leave it." Pratt smirked. That a threat? A warning? The sheriff mounted his horse again, spitting into the dirt once more. "You're making a mistake, Blackwood. Big men fall the hardest." "Only if they kneel," Nathaniel replied calmly. Pratt clicked his tongue and rode off with his men, the forest swallowing their silhouettes. When Nathaniel returned inside, Charlotte ran to him, gripping his shirt. "They're coming for me," she whispered. "My father, he won't stop." Nathaniel cupped her face, thumbs brushing her cheeks gently. "He'll try," Nathaniel said, "but he won't succeed." Tears blurred her vision. "Why would you fight for me? Why risk so much?" His answer was a whisper, deep and unwavering. "Because you're mine, Charlotte, not as property, not as debt, but as someone I choose, and I won't let anyone take you away." Something inside her cracked open, not from fear this time, but from the unbearable ache of being defended, cherished, claimed with tenderness instead of cruelty. For the first time in her life, someone stood between her and danger, and that someone was willing to face a family powerful enough to crush most men. But Nathaniel Blackwood was not most men. The next 3 days passed beneath a heavy sky. Clouds hung low over the mountains, pressing down on the cabin like a warning. Charlotte could feel the tension in every corner of the house. Quiet, coiled, waiting. Nathaniel never said the words "they're coming," but his actions spoke louder than any fear she tried to swallow. Each morning he checked the rifle. Each night he walked the perimeter of the clearing, silent as a shadow. On the 4th morning, Charlotte was kneeling by the garden watering the early lettuce shoots when she felt the ground tremble. Hooves, many of them. Her breath vanished. "Nathaniel," she whispered, standing so quickly the bucket toppled over. "They're here." The echo of boots and snorting horses drifted through the trees. Nathaniel was already striding toward her, rifle in hand, face carved in stone. "Inside," he ordered. "Now!" She grabbed his arm. "No, I won't leave you." His eyes softened for a split second. "Charlotte, you need to be safe." "I'll be behind you," she said. "I won't hide from them again." Nathaniel hesitated, then nodded. "Stay close." They stood at the cabin's front steps as the riders emerged from the tree line, Marcus Whitmore leading them, dressed in his finest coat, as if attending a banquet instead of a confrontation in the wilderness. His lips curled when he saw Charlotte. "You ungrateful little cow," Marcus spat. "You embarrass this family even from the mountains." Behind him were 6 hired gunmen and, to Charlotte's shock, her mother and sister. Eleanor sat rigid on her horse, refusing to meet Charlotte's eyes. Isabel watched with thinly veiled delight. Nathaniel stepped forward, rifle angled but steady. "You're trespassing," Marcus laughed. "You think your little shack in the woods has rules? I'm here for what's mine." "I paid for her," Nathaniel said, "in front of half the town." "Forced sale," Marcus snapped. "Sheriff Pratt filed the paperwork. The girl returns to me." Charlotte's voice cracked before she could stop it. "I won't go with you." Marcus's face twisted. "You don't get to choose. You never have." Nathaniel took one step closer, placing himself directly between Charlotte and her father. "She chooses now," he said, And she chooses me. A murmur rippled through the hired men. Marcus's jaw tightened. Shoot him! The first gunman raised his weapon. But Nathaniel fired first. The crack exploded through the clearing. The man dropped from his saddle before anyone else reacted. Birds scattered from the treetops. Marcus screamed at his men. Kill him! Gunfire erupted, echoing between the mountain walls. Charlotte flinched, but held her ground behind Nathaniel. He moved like water, smooth, efficient, deadly. He darted behind the woodpile, reloading, firing again. Another man fell. Smoke filled the air. Horses reared in panic. Isabel shrieked and clung to her saddle. Stop! Eleanor shouted, but no one listened. Marcus turned his horse toward Charlotte, grabbing at her as he rode past. Get over here, you useless girl! Charlotte stumbled back, terror flooding her. But Nathaniel was faster. He lunged, grabbing Marcus by the coat and ripping him off the saddle with a force that shook the earth. Marcus hit the ground hard, breath leaving him in a choked gasp. Nathaniel loomed over him, gun lowered but ready. This ends now, he said. Marcus wheezed. She's mine. No, Charlotte said. Her voice startled them both. She stepped forward, shaking but resolute. I am not property, I am not shame, and I am not going with you. Marcus's face turned purple with rage. You think he loves you? He spat. He bought you. The whole town laughed at him for it. Nathaniel's voice was quiet, but deadly. They laughed because they were too small to understand worth. The remaining gunmen hesitated, fear winning over coin. One nudged his horse backward, then another. Eleanor turned away. Isabel's smirk faded into something pale and uncertain. Marcus was alone. Nathaniel stared him down. You'll leave this mountain. You'll never return. If you do, you won't walk away again. Marcus scrambled up and back toward his horse, humiliated but alive. This isn't over, he hissed. Nathaniel didn't move. It is. Marcus fled, the remaining riders scattering after him. Silence dropped over the clearing, heavy, trembling, unreal. Charlotte's knees weakened. She sagged forward, and Nathaniel caught her instantly, pulling her into his arms. It's over, he murmured. You're safe. She clutched his shirt, burying her face in his chest. You could have died. But I didn't, he whispered, because I had something worth fighting for. She trembled. Me? He tilted her chin up so she could see the truth in his eyes. You, he said. Always you. The clearing stayed silent long after the last hoofbeat faded into the forest. Smoke from the gunfire drifted slowly through the trees before dissolving into the crisp mountain air. Charlotte remained in Nathaniel's arms, her heart racing, her breath unsteady, her fingers clutching the back of his shirt as if he might disappear the moment she let go. He didn't rush her. He held her the way a man held something precious, something irreplaceable, something chosen. At last, when her trembling eased, he spoke softly into her hair. Come inside, he murmured. You need rest. But Charlotte shook her head faintly, lifting her gaze to the sky above them. The sun had begun to break through the clouds, thin rays spilling over the treetops like warm fingers. I never thought I'd survive today, she whispered. Nathaniel brushed a stray curl from her cheek. You didn't just survive, you stood your ground. I was terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear, he said. It's standing anyway, and you did. Her lips parted, not in disbelief this time, but in wonder. Her whole life she had been told she was weak, too soft, too fragile, too unworthy to defend herself. Yet here she was, still breathing, still standing, after facing the man who had broken her again and again. Nathaniel eased a hand along the small of her back. "Let's go in. The fire's still warm." She nodded, and together they walked toward the cabin. Charlotte paused at the threshold, glancing back once more at the woods where her family had disappeared. Nathaniel noticed. "You're not wondering if they'll come back," he said. "You're wondering if you made the right choice." Charlotte lowered her eyes. "I chose you, because you're the only one who ever saw me as more. But what if I can't be who you think I am?" Nathaniel stepped closer, his voice gentle but unshakably firm. "You don't need to become anything for me. You are enough right now." Her breath hitched. "No one has ever said that to me." "I'll say it every day until you believe it." She blinked rapidly, fighting fresh tears that came not from fear, but from something far more fragile: hope. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled softly. Nathaniel guided her to the chair by the hearth, but she didn't sit. Instead, she turned to face him fully, her voice barely above a whisper. "What happens now?" Nathaniel exhaled slowly, resting his hands on either side of her face, his thumbs tracing the faintest circle over her cheeks. "Now," he said, "you learn what it means to live without fear, to wake in a home where no one hurts you, to decide what you want, not what others demand of you." "And you?" she asked. He gave a small, almost shy smile, an expression she'd never imagined a man like him capable of. "I'll be by your side," he said, "as long as you'll have me." Charlotte swallowed hard, overwhelmed. "Nathaniel, do you really want me here, after everything?" He leaned in, pressing his forehead to hers, his breath warm, his voice lower than a whisper. "This is your home now, if you want it, and I want you here more than I want breath in my lungs." Her eyes closed as the truth sank deep, anchoring, steadying, terrifying in its beauty. And for the first time in her life, she let herself believe in a future, a soft, fragile future, built not on fear, but on chosen belonging. The fire glowed, the cabin hummed with quiet warmth. Outside, the mountains held their breath, as if waiting to see what would grow from this moment. And the question lingered, suspended in the air, forming the story yet to come. Would the love they were beginning to build be strong enough to face the world beyond these mountains? Stories like Charlotte's remind us that courage often grows in the quietest hearts, and sometimes the greatest battles are the ones we fight to believe we deserve love. If you're listening to this right now, somewhere across the world, know this: every comment you leave, every moment you spend with these stories connects us across mountains, oceans, and lives so different yet so deeply alike. Tell me, where in the world are you listening from? And if you still believe that love can find even the most forgotten souls, don't go anywhere. The next story is already waiting for you.